3 bone-chilling true horror stories of home intrusions that haunt your nightmares forever. The night was unsettling, heavy with anticipation. Shadows darted through the trees like whispers warning of impending doom. In a quiet neighborhood, where everyone knew each other's names, a sinister presence lurked just beyond the streetlights. They say home is where the heart is, but what happens when that heart is assaulted by terror? This is the first story that chills you to the bone, and you may want to check your locks tonight. In the confines of her seemingly secure home, Sarah felt the familiar rhythm of her night. The television hummed in the background, mixing with the soft rustle of the wind. Suddenly, a sound sliced through the air. A delicate scratch, just a faint tick, like a fingernail against glass. Heart racing, she froze. Was it just the wind, or something more sinister? Each tick grew louder, more insistent, drumming against her chest. She crept toward the window, drawing back the curtain, her breath caught in her throat. When she saw a pair of gleaming eyes staring back at her from the darkness. Their glimmer sent panic surging through her veins. The tension thickened in her chest as she recalled the horror stories she'd heard: intruders creeping through windows, lurking silently in the corners, waiting for their moment. Why did she never heed the warnings? Why did she feel so helpless? The weight of despair settled like a heavy fog. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, a lifeline in the darkness. But the moment she reached for it, the lights flickered. Time slowed. Was someone inside? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Heart pounding, Sarah finally steadied herself. Gripping the phone tightly, she tiptoed to the door, remembering the very real possibility of danger. Footsteps echoed in her mind, and without thinking, she shouted, "Is anyone there?" Silence answered her, thick and suffocating. Perhaps it was a trick of her imagination? Or maybe fear had blurred her reality, but the scratching resumed, steady and purposeful, an invitation to dread. Were they testing her courage, inching closer to invade what should have been her sanctuary? It felt like the walls would close in, the very air vibrating with her unease. Just as she considered bolting out, Sarah turned. A dark figure stood in the doorway, framed by the moonlight, shadows dancing around him. The room went ice cold as she fought to scream. Her instincts screamed run, but the question burned deeper: how had he gotten in? What was she going to do now? The figure loomed larger, its intentions hidden behind a veil of darkness. Sarah's heart raced faster, a desperate drumbeat drowning out all other sounds. She could feel the icy grip of fear wrapping around her throat, tightening like a noose. Was this the end? Would she become just another story whispered between neighbors over coffee? "Who are you?" she croaked, her voice only a faint echo of her usual confidence. The figure shifted, and she saw a glint of metal, something in his hand. A knife? Panic surged forth, nearly drowning her sense of reason. Instinctively, she stepped back, forcing her eyes to search for an escape route. The back door was a mere few feet behind her. But could she make it? "Please, don't come any closer," she managed to say, her voice trembling on the edge of a scream. The figure began to move, sliding into the light like a grotesque illustration from her most terrifying nightmares. It was then she caught a glimpse of his face, pale and twisted, mouth curling into an unsettling grin. "Why don't you invite me in, Sarah?" His voice dripped with mockery, an insidious echo in the stillness of the room. The familiarity in his tone sent a chill down her spine, though she couldn't place him. Was he someone from her past? Another flicker of light snapped her back to the urgency of the moment. She couldn't waste time trying to understand him. All she needed to know was that he was a threat. Sarah's mind raced. Should she confront him? Or use the remaining seconds to escape? The scratching lingered like a ghost in the corners of her mind. Was this the same person she had seen from the window? How long had he been watching? Adrenaline kicked in, and she bolted for the back door, her feet moving without conscious thought. But as she turned, another shadow emerged in the doorway, another figure, tall and imposing. It blocked her way, her heart dropped. The room felt small, suffocating. She glanced back at the first intruder, now grinning even wider, his eyes wide with sadistic anticipation. Desperation clawed at her throat. There was no way out. Driven by sheer terror, Sarah's instincts kicked in, prompting her to do the unthinkable. She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy lamp, and hurled it at the figure in front of her. With a crash, the lamp shattered, and the second figure stumbled back, surprised by the sudden assault. This was her chance. In a wild surge of fear-fueled energy, Sarah raced to the door again, hand gripping the handle, heart pounding wildly as she twisted it. The door swung open, a beam of moonlight flooding in, but freedom was just steps away. Outside, the quiet neighborhood felt deceptively calm, the night air fresh against her skin. However, the tranquility was short-lived. As she darted into the street, she turned to look back, breathless. Both figures stood in the doorway, emerging as if jigsaw pieces clicking together in a trap. Their laughter echoed against the darkened windows, a haunting reminder that the nightmare wasn't over. "Run, all you want will find you," the first one called, and the reality hit her like a punch to the gut. They were not just random intruders, they were determined. Swiftly, Sarah whipped her head around, searching for the nearest house, a neighbor, anyone who could help, but as she headed down the street, a nagging thought gnawed at her. What if this wasn't a random invasion? What if they knew her? Another shadow danced behind her, and the menacing whispers of her mind taunted her into a spiraling descent of dread. But what if the real horror was waiting for her just around the corner? The night would not let her rest, and the chase was on. Where would her terrified heart lead her next? Sarah's legs burned as she sprinted, her breath coming in desperate gasps. The air around her turned thick with panic, each heartbeat a countdown urging her to keep moving. She had no destination, just the instinct to flee. The darkness pressed in, swallowing the muted light from the street lamps, making the world ahead feel treacherous. Shadows flickered in her peripheral vision, and she stumbled over her own feet, her mind racing back to the figures in her house. What did they want? Who were they really? Her thoughts flashed to the last time she felt this exposed, alone years ago, standing in a school hallway, terrified of the bullies who haunt her. This was different, much worse. The stakes were life and death now. Where were the neighbors? Cars on the street seemed like ghostly shells, offering no refuge. She needed help, needed someone to hear her scream. Without thinking, she lunged toward the nearest house, a familiar one just a few doors down. It belonged to Mrs. Caldwell, an elderly woman who had always looked out for her with her warm cookies and cheerful smile, but as she approached, Sarah froze. Lights were off, and the curtains were drawn tight. Mrs. Caldwell had been unwell lately. She might not even be home. The realization sent a fresh wave of dread crashing over Sarah. Who could she trust? An urgent rustling behind her jerked her from her thoughts. She turned, eyes wild, but saw only darkness. Was it them? Did they follow her? The laughter danced through her mind, echoing the twisted game they were playing. Then she heard it, a low, menacing chuckle, muffled yet distinct. Panic surged again, and she ducked behind a bush, praying it would shield her, even as she felt stupid for hiding like a child. She had to think there had to be a way out of this. A quick glance showed her the dark figure moving with deliberate ease, scanning the street as if searching for a misplaced toy. It was him, the first man. Those sinister eyes would recognize her in an instant. Sarah held her breath, terrified he might hear the frantic pounding of her heart. What if she had never opened that back door? What if she ignored the scratching? In that moment, doubts crept in, twisting the fear into guilt. But she didn't have time for such thoughts now. She needed to escape. In the corner of her eye, another figure emerged from the shadows, moving in unison with the first. Her heart sank. There was no avoiding them. Just then, a sudden thought struck her. The backyard. Her neighbor's shed had to have a tool or something she could use. Sarah had spent countless summers exploring it like a secret hideout. Perhaps she could grab something, a shovel, a rake, anything to defend herself. Crouching low, she darted toward the side of the house, the moonlight casting jagged patterns on the grass. The shed loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the night sky. She hurried, urgency fueling her every step. With shaking hands, she pulled the door open. It creaked ominously, the sound like a siren announcing her presence. But she couldn't stop. Inside, shadows swallowed her whole, the interior drenched in darkness, a chaotic assortment of forgotten tools strewn about. She felt along the wall, adrenaline surging through her as her fingers grazed something cold and metal, a spade. It felt heavy, comforting in her grip. She would fight. But before she could process her decision, the back door of her house slammed shut, and the mocking laughter poured out into the night, echoing in her very bones as she stepped out. "Where are you, Sarah? We're just getting started." She swallowed hard. The threat was real, and despair crashed over her. As she peered around, searching for a safe path, she realized that the chase had just begun. What were their true intentions? Why her? With the spade in her hands, Sarah took a deep breath and prepared to face whatever horror awaited her in the shadows. But lurking just outside her view, a sudden click of boots. The chase had intensified. Would the truth be more horrifying than she could ever imagine? The night air hung thick around Sarah as she emerged from the shed, spade clutched tightly in her hands. Shadows danced, mocking her every move. She scanned the dimly lit yard, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The laughter faded, but the fear swirled like a storm in her chest. Where to go? Each place felt tainted now. A sudden rustle sent a shockwave through her. Panic gripped her as she turned, eyes darting, heart hammering. But it was only the wind, twisting through the trees. She pressed on, every instinct screaming at her to keep moving. Then a thought struck. That old oak tree in the backyard. A few thick branches could give her a higher vantage point. Maybe she could climb and hide until the danger passed. She hurried, breath hitched as she approached the sturdy trunk. Sarah reached up, fingers grazing the bark, feeling the thickness of the wood beneath her touch. Swinging her leg over, she grunted as she pulled herself up. The branches held her weight. For a moment, a flicker of hope lightened her heart. She could see the street ahead, the creeping shadows of her pursuers. The two figures moved closer, their movements deliberate, like predators stalking prey. She felt dizzy, each pang of her heartbeat echoing in her ears. This was it, the moment she'd need to decide, fight or freeze. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered into the night, though she knew they couldn't hear her. Tears pricked her eyes, cutting through the haze of fear. Her mind raced, remembering fragments of news stories about home invasions, about girls caught in nightmares that didn't end. Then, amidst the tension, one figure suddenly halted. "I know you're out there, Sarah. You can't hide from us." The tone dripped with amusement. Disgust twisted in her stomach. Did they find this funny? She couldn't take it anymore. Gathering every ounce of determination, she leaned slightly to see better. What were they planning? She had to understand, had to figure this out before it was too late. In her gut, she sensed that whatever they wanted was sinister. "Sarah." The other figure's voice slithered through the air, low and hypnotic. "You want to play a game? Let us see how long you can hide." Panic pulsated through her. They were toying with her, trying to draw her out. Biting her lip, she carefully climbed higher, breathing deep and steady, trying to calm the storm of terror within. She needed a plan, but an echo of laughter tore through her thoughts like freshly cut glass. The figure in the front pulled out a flashlight, the beam piercing through the darkness. It swept across the yard. Sarah's heart raced. The light could easily spot her. Desperate, she glanced around, assessing her options. There. The roof of the shed loomed just a few branches away. She could make it. If she could reach there, she might escape their view at least for a moment. With determination burning in her chest, she swung to the next branch, gripping tightly. One swift move, and she was inching her way along. Below, she heard a voice again. Come out, wherever you are." Each word dripped with menace. She felt the fear clawing at her insides. Before she could think further, she leapt, fingers reaching, praying she wouldn't fall as the shed roof came closer. She landed hard but steady, the metallic tang of the spade cool against her palm. With every ounce of courage, she crouched low. The flashlight beam groped the ground, cutting through the darkness. She held her breath, her body trembling, barely daring to breathe. But just as she thought she might be safe, someone shouted from the driveway, their voice a low rumble that chilled her to the bone. "Keep her there. I saw her climb." Her world spun, a new layer of dread infused into the air, intermingling with the winter chill. What were they planning? Why did they need her? Questions floated, unanswered and heavy, as Sarah clutched the spade, ready to face the nightmare looming closer with each second. And deep down, she understood it was only a matter of time before they closed in. Would she have the strength to confront them, or would she be trapped in this game forever? The flashlight beam danced erratically across the yard, illuminating the underbelly of the night. Sarah's heart raced, each thud echoing in the hollow silence around her. She crouched low on the shed roof, fingers tightening around the spade. Her breaths were shallow, but every sound felt magnified. "Did you hear that?" The first figure's voice cut through the air, sharp and eager. It came from up there. Fear snaked around her throat. They were closing in, driven by some sick amusement. She dared a glance over the edge, seeing the other figure point directly at her. There. On the roof. With a swift motion, Sarah rolled onto her stomach, her pulse drumming in her ears. She wasn't ready to be caught. She didn't have to be. "I told you I saw her." The first voice spat, excitement tinged with malice. "Just wait. She'll come down eventually. Or we can make her come down." The second figure's tone shifted, a darker edge slicing through the air. Suddenly, a loud thud reverberated through the darkness. She couldn't see what it was, but it echoed like a gunshot in her chest. Panic surged again. They were planning something, but what? A new wave of determination washed over her. If they wanted to play a game, she could play too, only she'd change the rules. She surveyed her perch, spotting a branch that extended out over the back of the shed. A map of possibilities filled her mind. With a slight shift of her weight, she slid towards the edge, her grip loosening slightly on the spade, contemplating her escape. "Sarah! Don't you want to join us?" The laughter rang out, sickening and cruel. It slithered into her ears and curled around her mind. The game is just getting started. Letting their taunts fuel her, Sarah summoned every ounce of courage she could muster. She could go out with defiance. Hoisting herself onto the branch, she steadied her breath. She could make it to the tree if she could just jump. "Hey! Girl! We just want to see you." The second figure's voice had shifted again, now silky and smooth, like honey laced with venom. "Just a little closer, it's so much more fun when you play with us." Without another thought, Sarah leapt, adrenaline propelling her through the air. Time slowed as she soared, heart racing, instinct kicking in. She landed hard against the sturdy oak, scrambling to grip the rough bark, using all her strength to pull herself up. She barely registered the cries of shock below her, she was too busy scaling the trunk, branches clawing at her clothes. She scuttled higher, the flashlight beams struggling to catch up. "What are you doing?" one of them shouted, frustration creeping into their voice. "Just watching the show," Sarah shouted back, daring to let the courage spill into her tone. "You really think you can catch me?" In that moment of bravado, a rock struck the tree trunk near her head, and she gasped, startled. The game had just taken a dangerous turn. Fear curled viciously in her stomach, pressing against her resolve. They weren't playing anymore, they were turning this into a hunt. "Game over, Sarah. Time to face the music." A shout, full of rage, erupted from somewhere below. Cold dread wrapped itself around her, desperation now seeped through her bravado. Her mind raced. What if they really meant it? Branches creaked beneath her as she wrestled with her options. She could swing over to the next tree, but would it lead her to safety? Or would it only trap her further away from home? "Look," the second figure said, voice steady now, "we know where you are. You can't hide forever. Just come down and we promise to make this quick." The emptiness behind those words echoed louder than anything. The danger was real, palpable. But if she faced them, would it be a dance with death or a chance for survival? As dread clawed at her insides, Sarah realized she was at a crossroads. She needed to act fast. But before she could decide, a sharp crack rang out above her, a broken branch falling behind her. Instinct took over. She swung herself into the darkness of the other tree, clinging desperately now to each moment, searching for a place to land. The hunt was on. How long could she keep this up? What awaited her if she fell into their hands? The night stretched on. Shadows merged into one restless shape, and she needed to escape before they caught her. What riveting secrets would the shadows reveal next? With every beat of her heart, Sarah felt her grip on the knife edge of sanity faltering. She swung further into the dense branches of the next tree, her breath rapid and ragged as she tried to gauge where her pursuers were. The darkness enveloped her, a thick blanket of fear and uncertainty. "Where did she go?" The first voice called out, panic lacing the words. "Look for the footprints." She didn't have time to be quiet, the other one barked back. She could hear them scrambling below, the soft rustle of the grass underfoot. Every sigh of the wind sent ripples of dread racing down her spine. The flashlight beams illuminated the ground, darting back and forth, searching, seeking. Sarah held her breath, praying the branches would shield her from their fevered hunt, but hope was a slippery rope in this game of finders and losers. She peered down, heart hammering like a frantic drum. Just then, the beams hit upon her tree. The light flickered through the leaves, but she was just out of reach. "Come on. We're not playing anymore. This is your last chance." The silky voice dripped with false charm, but the menace behind it was unmistakable. She had to keep moving. Her mind raced to the possibilities. If she climbed higher, would she risk losing her footing? If she jumped again, would she land safely? No. No more hiding. The first figure's voice trembled in frustration, promising her, though she didn't want to hear it, what was to come if they got close enough. With a renewed surge of adrenaline, Sarah made her choice. She swung herself up another branch, trying to find a thicker one to brace her weight. Just as she thought she de-steadied, her foot slipped, sending her tumbling backward, her body swinging dangerously away from the trunk. The ground yawned below as she fought to regain her balance. "Oh God!" she gasped, claws of panic ripping at her. Suddenly, she felt her fingers gripping the rough bark, anchoring her just enough to catch her breath. She glanced down, heart in her throat. The flashlight beams had stopped moving. They de-spotted her again. "Isn't this the part where you give up?" The voice was mocking now, like a cruel game played just for them. "Just come down, and we'll have some fun together." Fun. The word echoed in her mind, sinister and distorted. With their laughter ringing in her ears, Sarah knew she had little time left to decide. Something primal urged her to retreat further into the branches, but what if that was only a dead end? Maybe this would be her last stand. A rustling from one of the far branches made her look up. The wind carried a chilling sound, something larger moving. A shadow shifted, and for the briefest moment, she could have sworn it was something alive. The figures below spoke again, this time their voices lowered. "What if we told you a little secret?" The honey-smooth voice lured her, a snake weaving through the grass. "We know something about you, something no one else does." What could they possibly know? Her heart raced as dread filled her veins. Each heartbeat pulsed with a mix of fear and anger. She was gridlocked between her instinct to flee and the burning need to confront them, but the idea of staring into their eyes, seeing what they wanted her to fear, terrified her. A distant siren wailed in the night, a reminder of the world beyond her nightmare. She might be able to shout for help, but would they hear her over the wild cacophony of the shadows? A glint caught her eye, something metal hidden among the branches. She reached out and gripped it, feeling the weight of the unknown in her hands. "Are you ready to play, Sarah?" They whispered, closing in the circle with naive confidence. What game were they truly inviting her into? With the revelation of an unexpected weapon in her grasp, fate hung in the balance, waiting for her next move. Would she rise to meet them, or would the darkness swallow her whole? The tree creaked ominously, and just then, she heard a deep crack echo from below, a branch breaking from the weight above. What waited on the ground in the wake of the sound? Was it freedom? Or the onset of a deeper trap? The dread settled in her gut like a stone. Sarah fumbled with the metal object in her hands, anxiety clawing at her focus. Her heart still beat wildly, echoing the thumping of the branch overhead that now seemed more fragile than it appeared. A slight movement from below shifted her attention. The light beams danced in a frantic pattern, revealing two shadowy figures edging closer to the base of her tree. "Where are you, Sarah?" The silky voice dripped more poison this time, coated with threats hidden beneath a disarming veneer. She could hear the smile in his tone, the twisted enjoyment they derived from her fear. They took turns mocking her, their laughter piercing the veil of darkness like daggers. "Just come down. It'll be more fun that way." The other voice called, dripping with a sick sense of amusement. The more they taunted, the more indignant Sarah became. She wanted to scream that she wasn't afraid, that they didn't own this moment. But the reality was starker, they had her on the defensive, and that left her no room for error. The faint siren wailed again, but it seemed so far away now, lost against the sinister backdrop of the woods. Her fingers tightened around the metallic object. It had weight, it felt solid amidst all her doubts, and maybe, just maybe, it could turn the tide. The shadows beneath the tree were shifting again, a spiral of movement creating a darker, more menacing form. She squinted to make sense of it, heart racing as she noticed something. Was it just a trick of the light? Or was there a third figure lurking just north of the base, blending into the shadows, waiting? "Don't even think about it, Sarah," the man below warned, an edge of desperation creeping into his tone. The shadows exchanged glances, the thrill of the chase hanging heavily between them. Then, suddenly, the whispers faded. They would have heard it too. A distinct snapping sound echoed louder than she could have anticipated, like the crack of a twig that heralds disaster. The atmosphere shifted, something, or someone, had stepped into the clearing. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Every instinct screamed for her to remain still, yet a sliver of hope flickered in her heart. Maybe this newcomer could help. But what if it was just another danger? "Did you hear that?" the first pursuer asked, tone suddenly sharper, a mix of concern and excitement. Sarah twisted her head around, eyes searching the treetops, desperate to catch a glimpse of whatever it was. "Stay put," the other whispered intensely, and she could sense the tension escalate. Her pulse raced not only for her but for them, to a prey caught in their own game, and perhaps their fate was about to take a darker turn. The branches above rustled, and Sarah's heart sank when she realized the newcomer wasn't he coming for her. No, it wasn't he here to save her at all. The sounds grew louder, heavier. The shadow beneath the tree shifted, its features obscured, but one thing was clear, it was another sinister presence. She dared to exhale just as movement erupted around her. In the chaos of it all, she spotted another flash of metal, glinting like a warning in the dark. But there was no time to make sense of what she was seeing. Had she finally been found? Sarah. A voice called a voice she recognized. Her brother? She contemplated her next move, torn between the truth of her fears and the thread of hope now pulling taut within her, but before Sarah could make a choice, the figures below reacted, the mockery and chase dissolving into chaos. Shouted words mixed with a sudden crash of noise, the ground shaking under the weight of secrets about to be unearthed. In those fleeting moments, when everything was uncertain, Sarah made her choice. She wouldn't wait and let the darkness claim her. With adrenaline surging through her, she climbed higher into the branches, her heart hammering relentlessly. As she hoisted herself upward, the branches twisted beneath her, and she clutched the metallic object tighter. Who or what was waiting at the base of the tree? Were they friends or enemies? What had been a moment of peril now bore the weight of a far deeper threat, and with each passing second, she felt the grim specter of fate closing in. Would she uncover the truth behind it all, or would the shadows consume the last fragments of hope she held? The air grew thick with tension, and Sarah's heart raced louder than the chaos below. Every movement felt amplified, a loud echo against the deafening silence of the night. She could hear whispers of panic creeping into her pursuers' voices, their bravado faltering with the encroaching dread of the unknown. Another rustle in the shadows sent a chill shooting down her spine. The third figure, still hidden, shifted slightly, the glint of metal now unmistakable against the backdrop of leaves. The fear in the air felt almost tangible, like a fog creeping toward her, suffocating and thick. "Get down, Sarah." Her brother's voice rang out again, more desperate than before. She recognized the weight of his fear, it clung to the words like a shroud. But what could she do? Her options narrowed with each heartbeat. If she climbed higher, she might escape the reach of the men below, but would it put her in the path of whatever else lurked around her? "Is that your brother?" one of the figures called mockingly, a cruel sneer punctuating the question. "Seems like he can't help you now. Come on, Sarah, take a leap of faith." She hesitated, the panic swirling in her chest, making it hard to breathe. The metallic object felt cool against her palm, a lifeline she clung to. It struck her then that it might not just be a weapon, it was her choice. Her mind spun through options, thoughts racing like wild horses. Then came another crash, louder this time, sending tremors through the branches and rattling her resolve. The figures below had moved closer, shadows merging as their excitement turned into a frenzy. The lurking fear drove them into a frenzy, their jeers echoing into the night. "Run, Sarah. You don't have much time." Her brother shouted, urgency spilling from his lips like a bucket of ice water. The sound of heavy boots crashing through underbrush drowned out everything else. There was no time for second thoughts. With a deep breath, she launched herself higher into the branches, searching for a sturdy hold. The bark scraped against her skin, the roughness grounding her in this moment of upheaval. "Look!" She's going up. One of them yelled, frustration betraying their panic. The urgency of their voices spurred her on, flicking the switch of defiance inside her. She wouldn't let fear claim her. Her brother's voice pierced through the chaos once again. "I'm here. I'm right below you." His conviction steered her focus, reminding her of the bond between them, a tether of hope in darkness. As she edged higher, she caught glimpses of movement below, tighter clusters, anxious hands reaching, searching for her among the leaves. In the midst of it all, the third figure shifted again, becoming bolder, stepping into the filtered light. Just as shadows converged around the tree trunk, she caught the icy glaze of a blade glinting ominously in the dark. the reality sunk in like a gut punch. No longer was this a game for them. They had come for blood. Sarah. Her brother's voice faltered. The urgency weighed heavier now, and just like that, the air turned electric with danger. As she reached for another branch, she felt the world condense around her. The metallic object slipped slightly from her grasp. Heart pounding, she barely managed to catch it, tightening her fingers around the shape despite the cramp building in her hand. It was a reminder, she still had power. Don't let them see you. Her brother urged, scrambling across the uneven terrain below. Whatever you do, just a sudden loud crash interrupted him. The ground below seemed to fracture, and with a wave of panic, Sarah shot her gaze down, the fear curling tightly in her belly. The figures, sensing their advantage, were now breaking through the foliage. They had found a way around. "I'll find you, I promise." Her brother shouted, unwavering, but doubt pooled in her stomach. In an instant, she had to decide. Would she descend, risk it all to join him, possibly leading him right into danger? Or would she stay, armed with her choice, ready to fight? The figures murmured excitedly below, hungry predators tasting victory in the air. Staring down at the chaos below, fear mixed with determination turned the tide in her. But amid her resolve, a shadow drifted too close, and she felt a deep shudder in the branches. Something primal took over, her instincts igniting. But was it enough? Could she confront the darkness facing her? Or was that darkness about to engulf her whole? As the tension built, one last howl echoed through the trees. And suddenly, Sarah saw it, the spark of the unknown lighting the night. What had she awoken? The branches creaked under Sarah's weight, each sound merging with the rapid thumping of her heart. She glanced back at the men below, their silhouettes shifting with frantic energy, breathless like wolves hunting a wounded deer. The glint of the blade flickered in the night, a harbinger of the evil that had found her. Then, the unexpected happened. A roar echoed through the trees, primal and wild, slicing through her panic. The men froze, their eyes darting toward the sound. It wasn't just her imagination anymore, a beast had stirred, awakened by the chaos. Sarah hesitated, the instinct to remain hidden battling with the curiosity gnawing at her. "Sarah! Don't look!" Her brother's voice cut through her thoughts, urgency wrapping around his every word. She tightened her grip on the branch, heart skipping as the noise grew deafening, crashing through the darkness and making the ground tremble. Just beneath her, one of the men shouted, his voice cracking. "What the hell is that?" Disbelief mingled with fear, a poison spreading between them, and then, from the depths of the shadows, the creature emerged. It was huge, larger than any dog she'd ever seen, with long claws that dug into the earth, teeth reflecting a menacing light. It seemed to wave away the moonlight, a dark cloud amidst the trees. The intruders were no longer hunters, they were prey. "Stay quiet," Sarah breathed, as the men below scrambled to regain their composure. The creature padded forward, its eyes bright and hungry, sweeping across the ground like an omen of death. As adrenaline surged, Sarah realized she had to act, and fast. In the time she had to think, she saw an opportunity. "If I can get to him," she thought, eyes narrowing on her brother's figure, still reeling from the chaos. "He needs me." Before she could second-guess herself, Sarah gripped that metallic lifeline tighter and climbed even higher, acutely aware of the danger lurking below. High above, the branches swayed and the air rushed past her. Below, the howls intensified as the creature charged forward, sending the intruders into a disarray that felt like destiny unraveling. "Sarah, get down here!" her brother yelled, his panic igniting the chip of courage she had left. But the very ground they stood upon seemed to betray their hopes. The creature had begun its move. Suddenly, one of the men shouted in terror, "It's coming for us!" A crash echoed when the beast lunged, scaring them even further into the night. Sarah's heart raced in time with the chaos, and in that moment, she could do nothing but watch. She felt herself swaying as if time had slowed, and then, just as promised, she took the plunge. She let herself fall, feet aimed to land a safe distance from her brother, landing with surprising grace on the ground. The night felt electric as she rushed toward him, ready to be his shield. "We need to go," she screamed, catching his frightened gaze. Just then, the third figure, the one who had kept quiet, emerged from the darkness behind her, eyes glinting with malicious glee. It was now or never. "Sarah, run!" her brother shouted, the sound ricocheting off the trees, a desperate plea that cut through the frenzy. They fled, but the creature was still on the loose. Panic surged. What had they awakened? Was it the true enemy? Survival instinct surged through them. But one question lingered just beneath the surface: could they outpace both the creature and the darkness closing in around them? A scream pierced the night, and everything froze as if the world stood still in shock. Who would make it out alive? Adrenaline coursed through Sarah as she and her brother sprinted away from the chaos. Fear, raw and palpable, wrapped around them, urging them on. The creature's growls filled the night, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet, each sound promising danger. "We can't stop. Keep moving," she yelled, her voice barely escaping her throat, echoed by her brother's frantic footsteps behind her. They dashed through the backyard, weaving past trees and bushes, the moonlight darting through the leaves, casting eerie shadows around them. But her heart pounded more for what was behind them than for the shadows around. She dared a glance back, only to see the creature lunging after the figures, chaos erupting between the two evils. The men had abandoned their hunt for her, now focused solely on survival, a twisted scene of predators being hunted themselves. "Over here!" her brother shouted, and Sarah followed his lead toward a neighbor's garage that stood ajar, a beacon of hope amid the nightmare. They rushed inside, the foul smell of old paint and gasoline hitting them hard as the door slammed shut, echoing behind them like a finality. The world outside faded into the background, a low growl mixed with panicked shouts, a cacophony of madness. "Are we safe?" she gasped, breathless and trembling, her heart racing, but the weight of dread never left her. "For now," her brother replied, scanning the darkness inside the small space, cluttered with tools and old toys. Pale beams from the moon filtered through the grimy windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like memories. They needed to regroup, to make sense of everything. "Listen," he interrupted her thoughts, eyes narrowing, fixating on the materials around them. The creature was still out there, and they had to prepare for what came next. "We can't stay here. It'll find us." "But what if they come back?" She felt the panic climb in her throat, choking her hope. The fate of what they had just escaped clung to her like a heavy fog. "Then we'll fight." His tone was resolute. Sarah realized then, they weren't just dealing with intruders, they were facing a nightmare that blurred reality. She gripped the metallic weapon tightly, her resolve forging itself anew. With her brother at her side, they searched the garage for anything that could aid them against their pursuers. An old wrench, some heavy-duty rope, simple tools, yet they felt like lifelines in this insanity. Sarah's heart raced with each moment. They had to act fast. Suddenly, the cacophony from outside reached a new height. The sounds of struggle pushed past terror, revealing a primal battle that split the night. Her brother's eyes widened, and she felt her own heart drop. This wasn't just chaos now. The creature had struck. "Sarah, we need to move," he urged, heart pounding in sync with her own. Each sound of struggle echoed like a countdown. Could this be it? They moved cautiously to the garage door, the dim light filtering through, marking their only path. Sarah held her breath, feeling the weight of the night pressing down. She and her brother paused, listening as the voices outside faded, replaced by heavy, labored breathing. "Right or left?" she asked, heart racing, wanting to see what was happening outside but terrified of the answers. "Left leads to the street, that's our only way out," he replied, forcing confidence into his voice. Together, they slipped out into the night, their breaths mingling with the cool air, the landscape eerily silent. The street was lit with dim streetlights, spotlighting the chaos few moments before. And then dread washed over her like a wave. Silhouetted figures moved, shadows flickering in the moonlight, but they were not just the intruders, they were now mixed with the creature, a scene unfolding that sent shivers racing down her spine. "We can't go back," she whispered, desperation curling around her voice. "I know." He was resolute, and she could see his courage shining through. "Remember the summer? We need to get to the old playground." Gathering every ounce of courage, they ran. The playground stood at the end of the street, a haven from childhood. The familiar sights brought memories, a time of laughter, innocence. They sprinted toward nostalgia, willing it to embrace them, to shield them from the nightmare, but the playground was not what it once had been. Drenched in darkness, the swings creaked eerily as the duo arrived. No friendly silhouettes awaited them now. "We need to climb," her brother urged, pointing toward the jungle gym. They had played there countless times as kids, but now it was a fortress, one that might help. "Climb," she echoed, the fear slicing through her, pushing aside every risk. The sunken metal rungs felt cold under her fingers, each hold familiar but heavy with the weight of the present. As Sarah reached the top, a rustling broke the silence. The surface beneath her creaked ominously. Her heart raced as she glanced down, seeing the shadows merging not just with fear. Darkness ebbed and flowed with the strength of the creature, its growls rumbling near. Then she spotted them, the intruders, panic visible in their eyes as they stumbled from the wreckage. "There!" one shouted as they caught sight of her. The brothers and sisters of the night moved purposefully toward them. "Sarah! Get down!" Her brother's voice trembled, invoking urgency, tearing through the thrum of chaos. In that moment, something clicked. A surge of adrenaline ignited. Didn't they see? The playground held their salvation. She would fight for it. The instinct to survive surged through Sarah, merging with her memories, the childhood laughter that was hiding under the shadows they now faced. The figures below merged, her old foes encroaching upon new fears, and they only pushed her further into the fray. "Get back!" she yelled, gripping the spade tightly, a glimmer of defiance igniting her spirit. And then it happened, a surge forward, the creature entering the fray, and chaos erupted once more. Darkness and light collided, the world breaking into shards around her. This was the moment she had longed for. She had already danced with the shadows and faced her nightmare. It was time to stand and fight. With a heart full of resolve and iron grip on her weapon, she prepared to confront what awaited them, the tangled fate they had unwittingly joined. "Let us end this," she shouted, teeth clenched, a warrior ready to embrace whatever came next. The night held its breath, and then, together, they leapt into the battle for survival. Make sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will grip your heart. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this wild journey alive. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this incredible tale wraps up. You need to show your support now. True fans know the importance of being part of this community.